Welcome to the Pink Sphere podcast. This is your 30 minutes of pink, a weekly space to pause, reflect, and tune into something real. Each episode, one of our incredible coaches join us for a conversation that matters. And today we're talking about performance. Sukh is here with us. She works with leaders, creatives, and anyone trying to keep their spark without losing themselves along the way. Hi, Sukh. I'm so glad you're here with us.
Hi, thank you for having me. Really excited to be part of the Pink Sphere.
I want to start with this question right away. What does peak performance actually mean to you, and how is it different from just being productive?
Great question. So, for me, what peak performance means is working to the best of your ability and enjoying it. So, that's the
Hmm.
key thing, enjoying it. Productivity is kind of surface level. And what can happen is you can be really busy, but ultimately you can feel a bit disconnected. Whereas peak
Hmm.
performance is doing something which is in line with your purpose and you get enjoyment and excitement out of it while also growing as an individual.
Wow. Wow. And you combine brain science with coaching, right? How does that help people lead or work better?
For me, the reason it helps people is because we all have a brain, right? We all understand.
Hmm.
So we all go for blood tests, so we'll know whether we're vitamin D deficient or iron deficient. But very few
Hmm.
of us actually understand what's happening with our brains. So when it comes to leadership and coaching, when people understand why they do things, what it allows them to do is it allows them to get into a flow state by knowing
Hmm.
what's stopping them, blocking them, and then that way they're able to understand that when they're doing things, it's part of their brain's makeup rather than
Hmm.
just because it's happening.
Hmm. And what's the flow state? Can you explain that a little? Because I've just heard of it. My English is not so perfect and I'm learning things along the way. So, can you explain what's a flow state and how can people get into it more often?
Okay. And your English is fantastic. Firstly, if I was trying to speak a different language and doing a podcast, I'd be challenged, honestly. Um,
Thank you.
so flow is basically where time melts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So where time melts, you're immersed in doing something which is challenging, but within your reach. Okay. So it's challenging, but
Mm-hmm.
it's within
Mm-hmm.
your reach, but you're not overthinking it. So this is when we get into flow states. You're not overthinking. You protect your focus. You cut out any noise, and
Mm-hmm.
you get in your rhythm. So what
Mm-hmm.
helps people understand this sometimes is maybe thinking of an orchestra or maybe like a jazz band. So
Yeah.
you're keeping that bass rhythm and keeping it, so you're keeping one rhythm over another rhythm, but it's in harmony, in balance.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about the brain, we have different brain waves happening all the time. So you have your alpha brain waves that keep the rhythm, your theta brain waves, which are a little bit slower and improvise and curiosity, whereas your beta actually allows you to tune into the task. So, flow state, without getting too technical, is the balance of your slower brain waves, so your alphas and your theta,
Mm-hmm.
and your beta brain wave, and they're just flowing in rhythm, allowing you to do the task in hand without thinking of other things. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. And while we're talking about the brain, you also do brain mapping, right? What does that even mean? And do you use like what methods do you use? And I think one of the methods are MRI, right? I'm not really into this. I don't have much knowledge about this, so could you enlighten me?
Absolutely. So we don't do MRIs.
Okay,
So that's more of like the more structural element of the brain.
okay,
What we
okay.
do is we've got a FDA approved for safety device,
Mm-hmm.
which is a brain helmet, and I don't actually have it with me here. I apologize. I can
No,
send you
that's
some
okay.
pictures. And what we do is we actually read your brain waves. So we have different brain waves at different parts of our
Mm-hmm.
brain. We have brain waves operating, and like I said, you've got your thetas, your alphas, your betas, your high betas, and your gammas. So we've got different brain waves. So imagine like radio frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And then different parts of our brain are responsible for different things. So your prefrontal cortex is responsible for making quick decision making and reacting very quickly. And then you've got your occipital and your parietal, different parts of the region. And what our device does is it reads your brainwaves in different states, so eyes open, eyes
Mm-hmm.
closed, and puts you into stressful situations, for example, and then very quickly in real time will give you a dashboard that allows you to understand.
Wow.
Yeah, honestly, when I first did it, I was like, wow.
It's like in the movies, you know?
It is. It's so cool. And you can see your brain waves. And then you get this dashboard that tells you how you're focused, how calm you are. And it's amazing. And then we can do neurofeedback after that. So it's like going to
Mm-hmm.
the gym. So
Mm-hmm.
you can then start training your brain and different parts of your brain in the same way that you would train different parts of your body, which is the
Wow.
neurofeedback bit after having done the math.
Wow. I'm really interested in this. I want to see how my brain works, you know?
Let's map you. Let's map you.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to ask you one thing actually, just about the previous question, to be honest, about the
Yeah.
flow state
Yes.
and being, concentrating on stuff. There are some people who can focus only on silence, there should be no voice, just calmness. But for me personally, I can focus on when there is chaos, when there are lots of noises, when I'm listening to music. Why does that happen?
So we're all individuals. Actually, first, I'm really glad you asked that question because sometimes when
Hmm.
we're understanding, oh, to get into flow state, you need to do X, Y, and Z. You need to
Yeah.
have absolute silence, or you need to have done a workout for 5 kilometers first thing in the morning. It's not the same thing for everybody. We are all individuals. Our brains are unique. So what
Hmm.
you need to allow yourself to be able to concentrate could be totally different to what I need. Right.
Yeah.
For ages, I'm not a morning person, right? I'm not a morning person. And for
Me
ages,
too.
I used to think that, oh my God, I have to be a morning person to be productive, or to get
Mm.
into that state. But
Yeah, yeah.
actually, I perform quite well and I get a lot of my work done in the afternoons or the evenings.
Hmm.
And now I use my mornings differently. So the
Hmm.
key thing for me is to get into flow state, is to get to know yourself. So what I do is, and I think everybody should start doing this, is start noticing what is good for them. When are
Hmm.
they actually able to get into whatever state they want to get into? Understand, maybe what's the environment, what's the noise, what are they wearing, what did they eat beforehand? Really get a nice idea of that holistic environment, and then recreate that anytime they need to get into a good state.
Hmm.
To be honest, this
Yeah.
morning, I was not in a good state. I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and I wasn't able to get motivated. So what I did is I was like, "Hey, what is this?" My space that I was working in was a bit of a mess, right? So I had stuff all over the show. I got lots of things going on, and I noticed that actually seeing all of that wasn't helping me. I had too many tabs open on my computer. So I was not allowing myself to get the task done that I needed to. So what I did, I didn't try and persevere. I noticed this was
Hmm.
what's going on. I quickly tidied up my desk, sorted it out, put it in some piles, took it away from my eye line, right? So it's something as simple as moving it from my eye line.
Yeah.
And then I closed some tabs on my laptop. And that allowed me to go, right now I'm going to be in this space to get on with what I need to get on with. And that's what we need to do, is recognize. So like you said, that you don't need quiet, you need some music.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you recognize that and recreate that.
Yeah. Just like a routine. You create a routine for productivity for yourself, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And your routine is different to somebody else's routine.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I actually want to ask you about the myths, about the brain or performance. For example, a myth that you wish people would stop believing.
Oh God, so many myths that I would wish people would stop believing. Let me think. I would say I would want is people thinking that they can keep pushing through and keep persevering. So when I was in the corporate world, I would be working all of the hours, and I wore it as a badge of
Mm.
honor. I'm like, oh my God, I'm working till 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I up back in the office. And this like this is a myth, right? We can't keep pushing through. Really, recovery isn't a reward, it's actually part of the process. So our brain needs to rest. So it needs to rest, which is part of the process to then be able to be creative, to be able to get the work done. What happens, right? So when we're constantly working, our brain is firing on different things happening at the same time, and we're not able to actually get to those answers. But when we rest for a little bit, what happens is our brain starts sorting itself out.
Mm-hmm.
When I do my talks, I compare it to a library, right? If libraries still exist,
Yeah.
showing my age. So you can think of it as your mobile phone if this one doesn't work. So what happens is we're opening lots of books, and we're opening lots of books, and there's lots of activity happening. And then the library can be a bit messy at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
If a beautiful librarian doesn't come in and sort out all the books, put them back where they need to, the person that goes to the library the next day, it's always quite a complicated place to find the information we need. And it's the same with our brains. If we're trying to do something and we keep going and keep going, sometimes that rest that we build in, what that's doing is it's allowing our brain to sort out the little filing system, put the books back where they need to. And what that does, Nazi, is creates connections while we're
Mm-hmm.
resting. Does that make sense? And it doesn't
Yes,
have to
yes,
be,
absolutely.
yeah. It doesn't have,
Yeah.
and this is why sleep is so important. But I'm not saying go and have naps in the middle of the day. Sometimes we can't do that.
Hope we could.
I live part time in Spain, so I definitely could.
Wow. Wow.
I definitely could. But if it's 5 minutes away from your desk,
Mm-hmm.
just going for a little walk, making a cup of tea, whatever it is, even those little rests in between allow our brain to actually um, get everything
Slow down.
aligned. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is one myth. Not pushing through, but actually
Mm-hmm.
allowing that rest is part of the process, not a
Yeah.
reward for getting through
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're getting through.
Mm-hmm. And, talking about this, working a lot and not stopping while I was creating the pink sphere, while I was just building the brand and setting everything up and meeting these incredible coaches, I was just working nonstop. And by nonstop, I literally mean nonstop. Waking up and, at 6 a.m., sending my kid to school, coming back and starting to work on the pink sphere. And then while my daughter napped, I kept working on the pink sphere. And during the day, whenever I could find the time, I kept working on it. And at night, when they went to sleep, I opened my laptop and kept working on it again. So the coaches then started telling me to slow down. Hey, Nadine, you're gonna, burn out. And I want to ask you because you talk about rust out as well as burnout. So I want to know what's the difference and how do we avoid burnout? I know you mentioned that you need to slow down as one of the myths, on contrary to working a lot. But what other ways that we can stop burning out,
Okay.
basically?
So
This was a long one, by the way. Sorry about that.
no, thank you. And thank you for sharing your journey, because a lot of the times
Yeah.
what people see is this beautiful platform that you've created, and congratulations on that. I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
but they don't see the hard work that goes on behind the scenes that
Hmm.
is not there on the Instagram or the LinkedIn or whatever. So, there's a lot of hard work, and I congratulate you.
Thank you.
So let me answer I think there's two parts: rust out and then burnout. Okay. So I always have my trusty elastic band. Those of you that have been to my conversations before will know I have trusty elastic band with me all the time. So rust out is when you're not using your skills. Okay. So if you imagine this
Hmm.
elastic band was just sitting there, over time, what would happen was the elastic would, I don't know the scientific word for it, but it would just kind of dissipate. Okay. And that can
Hmm.
happen to us as human beings. It dulls our spark. We're not using our skill set, and it can lead to boredom. And then that reduces your performance. So we talk about performance at the top of the call. So when you're not using your skills, you get bored and you rust out. And actually, Oxford's year of the word last year was brain rot. So a lot of us are not using our brain or our time wisely, and they were talking about it in brain rot, as in scrolling on our phones or our devices because we're not using our skills. And it's the similar thing to rust out. If we're not using our skills, we will then get bored and we
Hmm.
won't perform at all. So, and this is not healthy, right?
Yeah.
Rust out isn't healthy, and neither is burnout. So, rust out, start noticing when you're getting bored and you're not growing. And this is why having a growth mindset is important. Always try and learn something new, and then always try and stretch yourself. So, this is important. Stretch yourself a little bit, but not so much that you get to this point that you could snap, because that is what leads to burnout. And
Hmm.
this is where we need to get, we talked about the flow state. So the elastic band does everything. This is rust out. This is burnout. This little oscillation is flow. So you're just like stretching and resting, stretching and resting. So burnout is when you're working like this, and what happens is you run the risk of snapping. Okay. So if you're not giving yourself a moment to rest, you're going to end
Hmm.
up snapping. And this is when I'd say, you, even when you're doing something that is you're so passionate about, so you're passionate about the pink sphere, it is something that you really want to get out there. There's this myth, actually talking about other myths, that if you're passionate about something you can't burn out, but actually you can.
You can.
You
Yeah.
can, because you want to do everything and everything and everything, but then you don't give yourself the space and time to
Hmm.
rest and recuperate, allow your brain filing system to sort itself out. You can rust out then as well. So, what we need to do is get to that understanding of when you're maybe just being busy doing things and not getting like actual productivity, because that's what leads to burnout as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Did I answer
You
your
just need to
question?
find, yeah, yeah, yeah. You just need to find the balance, right? Yeah.
The balance. And then the other thing that I use with my elastic band is when you find the balance, you can, I won't ping it at you, you can then propel yourself forward. So if you do here, you're not using your elastic band. If you do here, you're running the risk of actually snapping. But if you're oscillating nicely, you can then propel yourself forward and then grow and get so much more done, which allows you to get to peak
Hmm.
performance. So
Yeah, yeah. And
the other thing that tends to resonate with people is if we think of athletes. So we work with a lot of elite
hmm.
athletes as well, and they will not be playing at the top of their game every single day. So if we think of sports personalities, whether they're football players, tennis players, whatever that might be, they're not playing Premier League games every single day. They also have rest days. They will also have some days where they don't, they do active resting where they'll do different
Hmm.
exercises. So it's the same way for us. Why would we think we're any different? And this is the message that I really want people to understand, is take those learnings from the sports personalities that perform, train, get to that point and really perform at their peak for, in a football match for like 90 minutes, and then they rest. Whereas in the rest of the world, we tend to think we keep going. But that's not healthy.
Yeah. And especially as women, don't you think? We have to work and we have to come back to our kids, take care of them and then cook and clean and do everything. Of course, we might have partners who help us along the way. But as women, what is it called? Instinctively,
Mm.
get all those responsibilities on our shoulders and we don't create enough time to rest, right?
So true. I don't have children and I don't have a partner right now. But even me, I end up, I'm in awe of the women that are managing to, have be founders, have great jobs, hold down a household and take care of their children. I think that's a lot. So I salute those women. I'm not one of those women. I am a founder and I do my job. And I build in lots of rest. But I agree, women do a lot of things, and it's instinctively that they have that skill in them that they want to do more. But I always talk to my female clients with the point of, if you have an empty coffee cup, right? how can you keep giving? Right,
Yeah.
tea, coffee, tea, water, stay hydrated, whatever your drink of choice. You can't keep giving and giving and giving. You need to learn to fill your own cup. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing I will say to all of the women that I work with is it's not self-care is not selfish. Work out what you need as an individual, and then that will make you a better founder, a better mother, a better partner, whatever that might be, and you'll propel even more.
Mm-hmm.
It works for men
I
too, but we're talking for women now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I want to keep asking my questions because I really do enjoy our conversation, but we have a little bit amount of time. So I want to ask you about the nervous system. Okay. How do you help people set goals that don't overwhelm their nervous system? I don't know if this is a right question. I don't know if this makes sense, but how do you help them?
Absolutely. Um, so what it is it's about so we have this idea of that we're going to set these huge goals. But the way to align goals to your nervous system is, can you actually hold this goal right now? Okay. So I don't know if you can
Mm-hmm.
see, I've got my whiteboard in the back there. Is I'll have really big goals that I want to achieve, but then breaking it down to something what is achievable. So when I'm talking to
Mm-hmm.
people, when I'm having those conversations, I allow them to express the big picture, but to make them to really set goals that are going to help them and get them a little bit stretched but not overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
is get them to see what do they need right now. What do they need right now? And what resources do they have that's going to allow them to achieve that goal? So it's goals with grace, not goals with grind.
Hmm.
That's how I would think about it, that allows them to be stretched and not stressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And productivity also goes hand in hand with motivation, right? How do you help someone who lost their motivation but still wants to do well, still wants to keep going, keep achieving things? How do you help someone get their mojo back?
Um, so that's a really good question. I use this on myself as well. Why, what's the reason for why you're doing it? And even bigger than that is, especially with some of my clients, is they have these goals that are not their own.
Hmm.
Okay. So they have goals that they think people want them to achieve. So in my one-to-one work, more than in my group work, I will ask people to really ask themselves, why do they want this goal? And I'll ask again, but why? Because a lot of the times we have goals and expectations in our lives that it's something that's exactly that, an expectation, maybe from society, maybe from our childhood, maybe from the movies, right? Whatever that might be. But actually, we don't really want that goal. And I'll be honest, I've had goals like that in my life. I've had goals that I really want X, Y, and Z. And when I really stripped it down, actually, I don't want that. I just think I want that because society expects me to have that. And
Hmm.
this is the key thing to getting people to set goals, is firstly asking why do they want it, and then making goals that are really going to be achievable with the time and resources they have available, because otherwise they get into this loop of beating themselves up and they won't get it done. So this is the key: why, and then small achievable goals, steps within those goals that they can then tick off. I'm a big fan of ticking things off. And again, it's about getting people to understand what motivates them. Some people love striking it off a list. Some
Hmm.
people, give themselves a reward for whatever the goal might be. But firstly is why, and then making them small and get some sort of recognition loop going, even if it's from themselves.
Hmm. Yeah, you mentioned the list, right? I have this list of, this list that I do yearly. I prepare a list and I say, hey, I'll do this, I'll do this, and every year, just a few points change and most of them stay the same. How do I begin to, make it all come true? Perhaps if I don't get them done, perhaps does it mean that I don't actually want them, you know?
Wow. I think you may have answered your own question. um, so there's number of things, right? So sometimes, yes, we put these things on the list that again, we think we want. So it may not be that you might not want them enough. You might want them, but you might not want them enough. Okay, so that could be
Mm-hmm.
one thing. And the other thing is we have to accept the resources that we have and the restrictions that we have, and we have to prioritize life. So there may be certain things that we can't do right now. What I would suggest is have a list of what you've done, not necessarily always the list of what you want to do. So you can have two lists, because there may be things that you end up doing that you didn't have on your list that you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But you may have done like a whole load of other things that you didn't even fathom.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a nice option.
Yeah.
I'll do that. I'll try that.
But yeah, I have lists. I have a long list for the year. Then I break it down into quarters, and then I break it down into months, and then weeks, and then days. And then some days when I'm really procrastinating, I'll have like the morning, the mid afternoon, and the evening list, because this is what's going to make me realize what can I actually get done rather than what
Mm-hmm.
I think I can get done, because that way, if I'm writing on what I can actually get done, I'm not going to beat myself up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Whereas if I have a
Yeah.
list of things that I'm never going to get done,
Yeah. Yeah. So you said you ask your clients why they want to achieve that goal, right?
yeah.
But what if your clients ask themselves a question? What's one question you wish your clients would ask before chasing their new goals or next goals? What should they ask themselves?
I think it goes back to what I said before. Is this goal truly mine?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is this goal truly mine, or have I inherited it or outgrown it? Okay? Sometimes we have goals that we outgrow. And then another question is, how am I going to feel once I achieve this?
Yeah. That's a really important question.
Because
Yeah.
because we sometimes set goals and then we have a misalignment on what we think our life is going to
Mm-hmm.
be like once we've achieved it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having a real deep understanding of what is this goal and why am I even doing it?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So, what is one thing, one tip, or one advice, or one last motivational thing you want to share with our listeners today about anything, about from, brain mapping or productivity or performance? If you had just one last thing to share today, what would it be?
Oh gosh, one thing. Um, I would say micro shifts matter.
Hmm.
Start small. Okay. So one conscious breath, one less tab open, one boundary held, micro shift. So if we can make a micro shift, that is what's going to make a difference in our lives.
Boom. That's a good one. Yeah. Thank you, Sukh. And that's a wrap on this week's 30 Minutes of Pink. Again, big thanks to Sukh for reminding us that high performance isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters with your brain and your body on your side. And if something clicked for you today, go check out Sukh's profile on the Pink Sphere. Her sessions and coaching are all about helping you perform at your best without crashing along the way. Follow the podcast, pass this along to someone chasing goals but feeling stuck, and come back next week, because next week we have another voice, another coach, another topic, and another step toward doing things your way. Okay? Bye.